think anger tends to be a very misunderstood emotion. When we look at all of the range of emotions that we experience, anger tends to be one that stands out, and we say, we need to get rid of this. This is no good. It plays no positive role in our life. We need to learn to just stop being angry. And I think that is a large misunderstanding that a lot of people have about anger, is that we should get rid of it. But just like every emotion is a signal of something, anger is also a signal of something. So we usually feel an emotion come up when there is something different from normal, right? Whether it's positive or negative, you experience an emotion. And anger is a signal that there is something wrong. We usually feel angry when we feel threatened or we feel attacked in some way, when we feel that someone is treating us unfairly or we are being disrespected. So in some way, we know that there is some boundary that's being breached when we get angry, when we experience anger. So it's important for us to have that anger, to know that there is a breach in the boundary. Only when we know that there is a breach, there is something that we can do to fix it and to take care of it. So anger has a very legitimate space amongst all of the other emotions that we experience. However, what happens is with anger, like you said, some people feel like they can't control it. There is a lot of association with aggression, with it not being something that we are able to handle. We are not able to rein it in. And because of that, there also tends to be a lack of empathy and a lack of support for people who are experiencing anger issues. And this can be a very alienating experience. And this is something that we want to change. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that this is something that everyone experiences, and it's not something that you need to hide away or be ashamed about. And there is help available for this. Another reason we are talking about anger on this platform, on the ELDA platform, is because there definitely is a gender skew with expectations about how anger is experienced and expressed between men and women. And I don't know how many of you watched the Oscars, or this clip that's going viral about one of the stars who slapped the presenter on stage. And the reason he said he did that was because he said the presenter insulted his wife. So he walked up on stage and slapped him and yelled at him and cursed him. Now, a lot of people came out in his defense saying, of course, that's his job. He should defend his wife. Would he be a man if he didn't do that? So there are all of these associations with masculinity, with strength, and with anger. Whereas if you look at the other end of the scale, where you have, again, a very famous and rich star, you have Serena Williams, who stood up to court, to the linesman, to the umpire when she was playing a tennis match. And she ended up being fined the largest fine that has ever been issued in the history of tennis. And we have all seen incredibly aggressive behavior from male players, but then she's the one who's been the most severely penalized for her anger. Now, I'm not saying that either of their behaviors were justified. I'm just saying that there is a vast difference in the way society views the way men and women display their anger, what is allowed, what is not allowed, what is seen as heroic versus what is seen as irrational. Women are expected to play nice, to smile, to sort of take care of other people. Don't curse. Your brother can curse, but you can't curse. If someone says something nasty to you when you're walking down the road, bite your tongue, put your head down, keep walking, right? We are taught not to retaliate. We are taught not to say anything back. And in turn, we teach our daughters the same thing. So there is this whole difference in the way anger is taught to boys and girls from a very young age. In fact, they did studies which showed that toddlers associated anger with men, with male faces rather than with female faces. So this learning happens very, very early on in life. And this is something that we all need to be aware of, and just understand that everybody, whether male or female, needs to learn to express and experience anger in a way that is healthy and that is appropriate. The other reason it's important to talk about anger is, like you said, it affects our health. And there are vice versa. There are health issues that affect anger, and there are anger issues that affect health. So when we get angry, there are a bunch of hormones that are released in the body, like adrenaline and cortisol. We move into this heightened state of alert. It's like we are in survival mode. I don't know if you've heard of this term fight or flight, but that's what tends to happen. The body pushes blood to the arms and the legs and away from the torso, because the arms and the legs are what we use to fight and to run away. And what happens is, at that time, the organs are surviving on a suboptimal level of blood, of all the nutrients, whatever it is, because everything's being pushed out for our survival. Now, this is fine if it happens occasionally. And it does happen to all of us occasionally. You feel angry, and this happens, and that's fine. But what happens is, when you have chronic anger, when you have anger very often, or when you have very high spikes of anger, when there's rage, when there's just these violent outbursts, the body takes a much longer time to come back to normal. So it's staying in that heightened state of alert for longer than required, longer than is optimal. And this leads to all sorts of issues like headaches, insomnia, high BP. It puts people at higher risk for heart attacks and strokes. Similarly, when anger is suppressed, you've already released, you feel anger, you've released all of these things, but you're not giving it an outlet. You're suppressing it, you're sitting on it. That can also lead to health issues, and it has been linked with things like eating disorders, autoimmune diseases, with chronic fatigue and chronic pain. And unsurprisingly, a lot of these disorders are more common in women than in men, because women tend to suppress their anger more than men. So there are a lot of health issues associated with anger, but there are also mental and emotional health issues that are associated with anger. It can really destroy relationships. It can break marriages and homes. It can, terribly screw up your work life, and it starts seeping into your everyday normal way of living. So we really want to be able to regulate anger in an appropriate way. So if you thought of a pressure cooker, if you have a faulty pressure cooker, what happens? Either it blows, right? Or it keeps everything inside and everything is a burnt mess, right? That you have to scrape off the bottom. So all of us experience that anger. In a way, all of us are, we are kind of built, we have that system. What we need is a proper safety valve. And what we need is a working whistle that will allow us to relieve the pressure as and when is appropriate and is necessary. So the way to do that, or one way to do that, is by using mindfulness. This is used interchangeably. When you look at meditation, the purpose of meditation ultimately is to build awareness about yourself, awareness about reality. And one way to achieve that awareness, or to build that awareness, is by using mindfulness. So they are very integral to each other. And if you ask me what is mindfulness, mindfulness is basically you're just purposefully or intentionally saying that I'm going to be in the present moment, and I'm not going to have any judgment about the way the present moment is. So if you were to break it down, there are three parts to mindfulness. One is to have an intention. to stay focused on the present. The other is to actually pay attention to the present. And every time your mind wanders away, you bring it back. Goes away, you bring it back. Goes away, you bring it back. And the third thing is to stay non-judgmental. So very simply, if you take an example of, and this is something that all of us are able to do, and all of us do naturally as well without even realizing it. So if you're sitting outside and you're listening to the breeze in the trees, okay, this is something that it's just a quiet, gentle experience that anyone and everyone can have. Now, when you're sitting and listening to the breeze in the trees, you're not thinking, oh, I wish the breeze would get stronger now, get louder now. Oh, suddenly it stopped. Why did it stop? Or you might start thinking, oh, it's getting really, really hot. I wish there would be more breeze. So there are all of these things that are happening while you're trying to listen to the breeze in the trees. When you are in a mindful moment, you are able to hear that sound and just keep listening to that sound without thinking about anything else and without being judgmental about that sound. So basically, that is what I would say is mindfulness. And there's nothing intellectual or complex about the practice. It's called a practice because we need to keep working at it, but at the core of it, it's a very simple, straightforward task that we need to do. So to talk about that, we need to talk a little bit about how the brain works. When the brain first evolved, it evolved for survival. So it evolved to make very quick judgments, very snap judgments about things like food, about things like security. And then it started making shortcuts, so that you save time, so that you're more likely to survive. So for example, if when we were evolving as ancient man, if I looked at an animal and said, hey, I've never seen this animal before, but it kind of looks like the animal that ate my uncle, so I better run. You're not hanging around to see, is it really like that same animal? Does it have as big teeth? Can it run as fast? You're not giving your brain does not have the time to think about all those things, because it's doing its job to keep you alive, and it's telling you run. So the brain sort of evolved to make all of these shortcuts. And even though we have now evolved to have higher brain functioning, the brain still sort of defaults to make these shortcuts whenever possible. So once you learn something, the whole process of exploration, of paying attention, of surveying things, all stops, and it starts to become a habit. It starts to become autopilot, muscle memory. So for example, if you've moved house and you need to go to the grocery store, you might look at a Google map before you even leave the house. You might try and plot it. You'd go downstairs, you'd orientate yourself. You have all of these things, and it take you a long time. But eventually, over a couple of weeks and over a couple of months, you can be talking on the phone and having a really intense conversation, and you will just land up at the store because you know you need to get this. So you don't even know how you got there, but your body knows. Your body has a muscle memory, and you've got there. So just like that, our emotions and our behaviors also tend to be habitual. And anger is learned. If you think about anger, the feeling of anger is universal, but the triggers of anger and the way we behave towards anger are very learned responses. So this is something that just becomes automatic. And with mindfulness, what it does is like it's pressing a slow motion button. And then it slows down the entire process. So our more superior brain, our more rational brain, our problem solving, our reasoning, our logic can all start to come into effect. And when we have this time available to us, That means that we can choose how we want to behave. We can choose whether we are going to allow something to trigger us or not. So it mindfulness really builds this self-awareness. It builds our awareness about our patterns and our habits. And once we know what that are, like you were saying, then we can start to change them. There are other things like journaling and affirmations that we can use for anger. Whether you're writing a grocery list or whether you're preparing for a lecture and you're writing your notes down, just the act of putting things down helps your mind organize your thoughts and gives you a sense of clarity. So when you journal with regards to your anger behaviors, what has triggered my anger, what has made me angry today, how did it feel when I was angry, how did my body feel, what was going on inside me, and then what did I do, how did I react, what did I say, or what did I not say, what do I wish I had said but I didn't say. Putting all of that down on paper helps us organize our thoughts, organize our feelings about anger. It helps us recognize patterns that we may have fallen into without knowing. The other reason journaling is great with anger is that it is an opportunity for catharsis. So I don't know how many of you have done this, but I remember when I was young, I used to write letters saying things that I couldn't say, or I felt too shy to say. You write it and then you never actually give it to that person. You either burn it or you throw it or you hide it in your drawer, whatever it is. So it's a great way to get things off your chest. But at the same time, it's a safe way to do it, right? So then you can actually be honest. You don't have to hold anything back. So journaling is fabulous for us to be able to vent our anger, to be able to regulate our emotions. Um, the other reason writing is so great or journaling is so great is because when we are going through a process of change, and a lot of us are here today because we want to start having some kind of change in our anger behavior. When we start going through this process, when we write things down, it's kind of like recording our journey, tracking our journey, tracking our progress over time, just seeing how far we've come or how we've changed. So I would highly recommend journaling as one method. The other method is using affirmations, and I don't know how many people here already use some affirmations. I think now pretty much any inspirational talk or any snippet for the day, or even your WhatsApp will give you good morning, here's your affirmation for the day kind of thing. And affirmations are fantastic because they're positive statements that help us counter sometimes very negative self-talk that we tend to indulge in. And when you have an affirmation, when it's a positive image that you start building in your mind about yourself, what happens is you're actually starting to activate parts of your brain that would have gotten activated if you were those things. So if you say I'm strong and I am healthy, and you keep saying that I'm strong and I'm healthy, your mind starts building this image that you are strong and healthy, and then it starts behaving like you are strong and healthy. So when you want to make positive changes to improving your health, to improving your emotional strength, whatever it is, it's much easier for your brain to make that leap, and for you to actually stick to whatever tasks that it is you've given yourself. It also definitely boosts self-confidence and your mood and your self-esteem. So yeah, so journaling and affirmations along with mindfulness, I would say, are very useful techniques. I think for me, there are certain guidelines for when I would want to reach out to professional help. One of them is when your physical health is being impacted. So we've already seen that anger can have a negative effect. So if you have, like you say, women, especially in the middle age or who are going in towards menopause and things like that, have a lot of hormonal fluctuations. And that can just destroy your mood and your peace of mind. And you can feel like, I am not able to control this. What is going on with my life? So I would definitely say, if that's something that's happening, then please reach out to an endocrinologist. When you have issues around blood sugar, for example, we've all heard, I don't know, but I've this word is very familiar in my household. It's called being hangry. Is when you're angry, when you're hungry, and it's so much more easier for you to get angry when you're hungry. So when your blood sugar is dancing all over the place, again, your ability to cope with stressors, your ability to hold on to your peace of mind, to your to respond calmly to an anger situation, it's going to be that much harder. um, Also, when you're dealing with issues like chronic pain, when you have maybe arthritis issues or osteo issues, again, these are things where your body is already coping with something difficult. Now you're adding more stuff on it. So you want to take care of all of these basic health issues as far as possible. So I would definitely say, reach out for professional help if you think that there maybe health issues that you're dealing with that could be impacting more than your health. It's also impacting your emotional health, your mental health, and your relationships and all of that. With regards to other areas, I would say that it really depends on each of us. It's very subjective. When you look at anger and you look at emotions, and you think about the extent to which it is impacting your life. So if you feel constantly overwhelmed by anger, if you feel that it's sort of taking over your space, it's taking over, it's seeping into all of your relationships slowly, it is seeping into your work, it is seeping into your daily functioning, then it is a sign. Like we've said, all of the emotions are symptoms. They're signals to show us that there's something going on. And just like there are health issues that can impact anger, there are also emotional and mental health issues that we may need to deal with. There are a lot of women just in my friend circle, in my family circle, who have dealt with traumatic events, who have perhaps experienced abuse of some kind, who are needing to take care of chronically ill people in the house. So there is a lot of emotional, mental health issues that they are dealing with, either historically or even now, that they feel that they haven't really dealt with. It's just sitting there. So I would definitely say, if you have those kinds of issues in your background, and I think many of us do, that is also a space where professional help can be very, very useful. And you'll find that once you take care of those, or at least start dealing with those things, then your resilience goes up. Your ability to deal with stress, your ability to deal with anger definitely improves. The third and final thing I would say is, with anger, because anger is so associated with aggression, if you ever find yourself in a situation of violence where there is a fear for your physical safety, where there's a fear for other people's physical safety, then definitely this is another area where I would highly recommend that you get professional help.